this morning, and I just realized that ever since I've started on this healing path, this plant medicine path, I just started experiencing more synchronicities in my life. We went to a family's wedding, and I had lent the jacket to my son, and he had lost it. They couldn't find it for some reason. A couple weeks later, I had attended one of my friend's Wachuma ceremony. A friend of mine she had some oracle cards with her. Just randomly, she pulled a card. The spirits told me to pull this card for you. And she hands me the card, and I look at it, and it says something like a new coat. My mind was blown. Welcome to the Shamanic Tonic podcast, where we explore various shamanic concepts and other energy healing modalities, with the intention of being able to practically apply these concepts in everyday life to feel more empowered, heart opened, and centered. Hey everybody, I'm Rise, and I'm here with Lisa. Welcome to this episode of Rise and Shine Shamanic Tonic. In this episode, we'll talk about plant medicines, sacred medicines, and synchronicities. But first, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our podcast. With that, let's jump right in. So, Lisa, what type of shamanic tonic are you drinking today?
Well, right. I'm doing something a little different today. I mean, I don't know if I would consider it a normal morning shamanic tonic, but I'm going to be taking Chiricsanango.
Oh, dude, that's hardcore. Okay.
So my lips might start vibrating midway through our podcast,
Okay.
but it just felt like a good day for me to do this. So Chiricsananga, it's like a shrub, like a big shrub with beautiful purple flowers. You might recall it. There was one by the medicine house at Aya Healing Retreats. And yeah, so I brewed it in, you can use different alcohols. This one I did bourbon rye, which was one of the recommended ones. And I've had it soaking for, I don't know, months.
Wow.
So for me, it's going to be a shot.
Yeah, that looks like a pretty big shot too.
Well, this part's not full.
Okay.
I think this was about what we would have. I've done it before, so it's appropriate amount.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be really healing, right?
Yeah, retreats
Physically healing or spiritually healing and physically healing, both.
I think both. Everything's spiritual, but yeah, it does a lot to reduce inflammation. Um, so it'll help to remove body pains, and I'm pretty good. I have a little bit of pain in my right elbow. But I also know that these plants know more than we do about what our body needs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a good day for me to do it.
I remember taking that. We used to take that almost every other day, right? During the
Yeah.
shamanic initiation training. And I remember halfway through the day, I would just feel really sleepy.
Yeah, you don't want to have a lot of heavy plans for the day. I'm just going to be doing stuff around the house mostly, repotting plants and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Today I am drinking a passion tea, and I think what it has in here is a little bit of hibiscus, some passion fruit, some rose, and then I put some ayahuasca drops in here, as well as some Noya Rao drops. Um, and yeah, that's what I've got as my tonic today.
Right on. Well,
So,
cheers.
yeah,
Salute.
cheers. Yep.
Woo.
Okay, so with that, let's jump right in. So, yeah, plant medicines, sacred medicines, and synchronicities. I thought about this topic this morning, and I just realized that ever since I've started on this healing path, this plant medicine path, I just started experiencing more synchronicities in my life. And I'll just start it off with a story. So For a long time, I had this favorite jacket that I had. It was this blue windbreaker jacket, and this was a jacket that I've had for years, and I've traveled to over 47 different countries, and whenever I travel, I wear this jacket. Like it's my go-to travel jacket. It's almost like my friend. I
Mhm.
consider it like my friend. And then one time we we went to a family's wedding, and I had lent the jacket to my son, and he had lost it. He left it at the wedding, and I called the wedding venue and I tried to get it back. I couldn't try to get it back. They couldn't find it for some reason. And for the next few weeks, I was just so upset about it. I was like, "Oh, that's my favorite jacket. I can't believe we lost it." I actually wanted to cry almost.
Mhm.
That's how much I love this jacket. So then a couple weeks later, I had done a Wachuma ceremony. I had attended one of my friend's Wachuma ceremonies, and that ceremony was so healing. During that ceremony, a friend of mine who reads tarot, she pulls not tarot, but she had some oracle cards with her. Just randomly, she pulled a card and she said, "Rye, the spirits told me to pull this card for you, and I need to give it to you." And I'm deep in the medicine, she's deep in the medicine, and she hands me the card, and I look at it, and it says something like a new coat,
Mhm.
or a new shirt or something new, like a new piece of clothing. And I was
Mhm.
like, my mind was blown, and then she handed me the book to read, and it pretty much said you have to let go of your old ways, let go of the past, let go of things that you're holding on to. It's time for you to let go of that old coat, time to get a new coat and
Mhm.
follow this new path.
Mhm.
And in that moment, my mind was just blown. And what was more interesting is a week before that ceremony, because I had lost my jacket,
Mhm.
I had gone to the store to to look for a new jacket, and I was so angry about it. I didn't want to buy a new jacket. And then the only color of jacket that they had was orange. And it turns out that orange was like this color orange just kept popping up in readings with my friends. And it was just another synchronicity, like all these synchronicities weaving together to let go of my dark blue jacket, to take on a new color of orange, and to follow this new path. So I don't know how this stuff works, but I think it's super magical.
It is magical. And synchronicities are just like a playground. Like I just feel like it's just one of the most fun aspects of life is when you notice synchronicities. And what's interesting is, one of my favorite shamanic topics is dreams. And it was Carl Jung who actually evolved this concept of synchronicity. Not even evolved, he was like the curator of the concept of synchronicity. And so I was doing a little research myself, and I have this book, Memories, Dreams, and Reflections by Carl Jung. And I can read a little excerpt, but he basically, it was through his dreams that he started to notice that things were happening in his waking life that were synchronistic. And if you Google synchronicity, it basically says like seemingly related events that have no explanation of causality.
Interesting.
It's basically kind of saying that a little bit that they're kind of pointless, to a certain degree. Like it doesn't give it the weight that it deserves.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how they define it. And there's references to Carl Jung. And of course, like in here, whenever he talks about synchronicity, it's through his own experiences of dreaming and then having something occur in waking life. And it's kind of like yours too, where the related experiences are not like so close, which needs, is an important thing to remember, that synchronicity can happen with some space and time.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, I mean, I can't tell you, it happens to me all the time, actually, like all the time, where, I call someone up and they're like, oh my God, I was just thinking about you, and that's like one of those kind of synchronicities that's like happening at the moment, right?
Yeah.
So we have both kinds, kind of
No-
more immediate, and then ones that if you're conscious enough, and that's the trick, is to know, to have enough reverence, or to value enough the concept of synchronicity to keep an eye out for it.
I mean, that's a good point. And that time aspect is so mind-blowing. You just reminded me of another synchronicity story where, so 3 years ago, I started researching stories from the Amazon.
Uh-huh.
And the two stories that I fell in love with were the story of, from all the stories, like I bought this book and it had so many stories. And the two stories I fell in love with were the story of the Chuyachaki and the story of the Noyorao tree.
Mhm.
So then I started researching. I wanted to make a YouTube video just talking about these two stories, and I started researching, trying to get stock photography for these concepts, and that's how I found Aya Healing Retreats,
Mhm.
just by looking for the picture of the Noya Rao tree, because Aya Healing Retreats is one of the few places that lets you diet the Noya Rao tree. So then I found it, I found that site and it said, oh, shamanic initiation training. And I was like, oh, I really want to do that, but I didn't have the time or the money to go on that retreat. And so it took me 3 whole years to save up the money and to find the time to go on that retreat. And by the time I got to the retreat center, they assigned each of us tombos. You know this, and my tombo was named Chuyachaki.
I didn't
And I
know
was
that.
like, dude,
I love it.
mind blown.
I,
Like these synchronicities, they span so many years, you know.
wait, yeah.
So, and even though I wasn't dieting the Chuyachaki, I
Mhm.
still was trying to connect with that spirit while I was there, and it just felt right. It felt good, you
Well,
know.
that's interesting too, because like I said, when I call up a friend and they're like, "Oh, I just was thinking about you." What do you do with that exactly? Well, I mean, if you follow through on your intuition, like, "Oh, I'm going to pick up the phone and call Jill right now," then there's that. But the kind that you're talking about brings us back to the relationship between plant medicine and synchronicity, in that they always say that the grandmother calls you in.
Yeah.
And that clearly happened with you. And I would say that that happened with me too, because I remember before I had ever done my first ayahuasca experience 10 years ago, um, I don't know what it was, but and I don't remember what initially tipped me off to it. Maybe some of my friends in Australia talking about it, I'm not sure, but I went through a phase where I was just feeling so interested. And I remember I spent the night at my friend's house and I stayed in her son's bedroom. And that night I was just glued. I was awake for some reason. I was just poring over YouTubes about ayahuasca. Like I just couldn't get enough. I watched a documentary. And then the very next day I continued my travels to Harbin Hot Springs, and I sat with my friend who I was going to go to Australia with in like a 2 months time. And he said, he goes, "Oh, Lise, did I tell you my brother set us up for an ayahuasca journey?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, just like last night, I was just pouring over that stuff. And then here it is, the very next day I'm going.
Hmm.
And so, and Carl Jung, when you read his stories about synchronicity, they all had a lot of value and purpose. Um, like, I mean, some of his dreams, they led to him writing these profound pieces about synchronicity or about whatever the synchronicity was pertaining to. But they usually, especially when there is that separation and you're conscious enough to grasp the gift, they're pretty profound and have purpose.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Do you have any synchronicity stories that you want to
Any?
share?
Got so many.
I know you have a number, but
Have
any
so many.
ones that
But
you want to share during this
yeah,
podcast.
well, the one of the more recent ones that I just love that came about through plant medicine and work with grandmother ayahuasca was it actually wasn't even directly through the medicine. It was a little indirectly, where when I went to the retreat center and I had asked Don Miguel, the shaman, if he could give me a spiritual name before I had left the retreat a month later. And then 2 days before we were leaving, I checked in with him. Had he received my name? And he's like, "Oh, yeah, after ceremony 4." And the name he gave me was Ronin Biri, which meant the anaconda that swims in the river and is black at night. And then during the day, it sparkles like a discotheque, multicolored. And so it brought in this whole extra level of snake energy, which we know is a part of ayahuasca journey. I mean, the snake is a very strong, consistent symbol that can come forth. But so he gave me that name, and then I did have some snake energy in my last ceremony after he told me that. But this real synchronicities happened when, well, as soon as I went to the airport to leave Peru to head back to Los Angeles, I saw oh, here it is, this snake serpent
Nice.
ring in the market, and I just fell in love with it. And I put it on, but I couldn't get it off because my hands were kind of swollen. I don't know if it was the jump back into the matrix. But the woman went to get some oil so I could take it off, and I'm like, "Oh, forget it, doesn't matter. I'm going to keep it." So I
Yeah.
found this. It was the only one they had, the only size. And then I came home, and after being home for a week where I was still just very much in the medicine, uh my phone rang, or no, I had this idea. I was watching TV and I thought, I'm going to go call my friend. And I went outside to call my friend, and there on the fake grass, this little patch of fake grass in my backyard was, I don't know, it was like maybe 4 feet, 5 feet, this snake. And I had never in my time living here seen a snake before, certainly
Wow.
right in my backyard. So I was like, "Oh, wow, how about that? That's interesting." Two
Yeah.
days later, I'm hiking, and right across my path, and timing was everything because I stopped and had a conversation with a stranger along the way, so it all had to align, right? I saw a rattlesnake, and it was crossing right in front of me. It wasn't hissing or rattling, it just wanted to be seen. And then, like 3 days after that, I saw a third snake in my backyard. It was a baby, more of a baby one, but
Wow.
that was 3 snakes within 1 week
Yeah.
coming from Peru and receiving that name. And the Native Americans say that when you see, an animal spirit 3 times, that is absolute confirmation that it's your spirit animal.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So that was a lot of synchronicity.
That is a lot of synchronicity. Um, you just reminded me one that's been happening to me the last few weeks, maybe the last 3 weeks,
Mhm.
is every time I step out of my front door, I'll go see a butterfly. Like a butterfly will just come out of nowhere and it'll fly in front of me. And I'm like, what is up with that? And I've never actually worked too much with a butterfly, maybe in some shamanic journeys in the past, but it just lately it's just been nonstop butterflies. So I've been asking my family, I'm like, have you guys been seeing butterflies lately? And they'll be like, no, I haven't seen these butterflies, but I guess yeah, it's just one of those synchronicities that just happens.
Do you make anything of that? Do you have any?
Well, for me, the meaning I was taking from it was, I kind of felt like a caterpillar for a while, and I was in the cocoon, and maybe I'm starting to emerge a little bit more on this path,
Mhm,
and it's time to start flying a little
mhm.
bit more,
Yeah,
and that's the meaning I got from
mhm,
it. So,
yeah. And in
yeah.
my version of your experience, like it could also be that every time you step out the door, I like to say that we're never the same person twice. So the minute you step out the door and enter into your day, you're becoming something altogether new.
I love that. Yeah, that's great.
So, like, what kind of transformation is Rye going to experience as he steps out the door and into his next day of life?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
And maybe to be light and, you know,
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I like that. I have been thinking about surrender more and just, like you said, just feeling lighter, and leaving things up to spirit. So, what
you know,
about numbers? You see numbers?
it's funny you just said that because I was just thinking, like a lot of people will associate, yeah, we'll find numbers being synchronistic and like certain, if you go onto YouTube, there's certain astrologists or tarot readers that say today this is your number, and if you see this number it's affirming something. And then of course there's 1111, which a lot of people are familiar with, right? And
Yeah,
then like, so when that happens, when you see 1111, I think that the overall idea is you just kind of take note of what you're doing at the time or the thought that you just had, and it's reinforcement in that way. Or it could just be a reminder message that you're in alignment and you're on the right path, kind of thing. Talk about distance between synchronicities, like when I learned about 1111, which was quite some time ago, but I never put it together until years later when I was just walking around where I grew up. The church that I was raised in, the address is 1111 Beach Park Boulevard. And when I was growing up there, I didn't know about the 1111 synchronistic thing.
mm-hmm.
So then to go back and realize that the church that I went to and was so active in when I was young was 1111,
Yeah,
that felt pretty perfect.
yeah, amazing.
And that's the kind of example where it's like, okay, it's affirmation, it just feels positive, it feels good, as opposed to maybe like when you get the card about the jacket, maybe it actually helps you to release, let go of the anger, let go of the
It
sadness,
did.
and move on and get a new jacket and love that one.
It did. In that moment when that person handed me that card, I released all of that anger, and I was like, "Oh, it's a message from spirit." It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have any theories as to how these are happening, or what's triggering these?
Well, as Carl Jung would say, it is the collective unconscious
Hmm.
that's always present. And, I've told you in previous podcasts and stuff where I've had dreams that were connected to experiences that other people had at the time that like I was dreaming it at the time that they experienced it.
Yeah.
Carl Jung talks about that too, where he figured out that when he had the dream, he had the dream while the incident that he was dreaming about occurred. And So I think it's all available to us, kind of like how they say every cell of our body holds the universe. I think it's like this vast field of experience and information. And if we're open to it, and if we're dedicated to it, and if we give gratitude for it as it comes in, we're going to receive more, and we're going to tap into that more.
Yeah, I
So
love that.
there, it's just a matter of whether or not, we really kind of cultivate it and nurture it.
Right. Right. I love that. I think related to what you just said about tapping into it and connecting with it more, I feel like when we do plant medicines, for example, like ayahuasca, and then we do purge, and then we start to remove these blocks within us, and we start to become more aligned with higher frequencies, and maybe the frequency of source. So
Mhm.
that helps us connect more to that energy and that field of knowledge that's out there.
It's
And
so much fun, right? When I think back to our retreat, very early on, I think some people talked about some dreams, and I knew I was having dreams. And I know that dreams are so foundational to plant medicine work, shamanic work. And so it was starting to brew in me this idea, like maybe I'll just do a spontaneous, we were invited to share our gifts, right? So I
yeah,
thought, well, maybe I'll just do a spontaneous 1 hour workshop download about dreams, because I also knew that not everyone was remembering their dreams, and that I could help facilitate that. And then I had a dream before I gave the workshop. I had a dream in which I drew it out in my dream journal of like kind of like a staircase looking thing. And then the next day, Don Miguel was doing one of his teachings, and he drew a staircase.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
And
yeah,
I thought, oh my gosh, like one, I recognized it right away when he drew it. But the other level is that the divine spirit knew that I was thinking about giving this dream class, and it gave me a tangible example, like a very current, tangible example where I could show my notebook of the drawing. Everybody else saw him do that drawing. And it's like I was just being sourced with material once I made that intention,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know? So that's the thing too, is like, ah, it's so amazing, like what we can gather for our own growth and intentions if we just apply some, yeah, intention, really sincere intention, curiosity, appreciation.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. The more I see these synchronicities, the more grateful I do feel about life, and the more I realize how magical everything is.
And also, isn't it so comforting? It's like it's just such a reinforcement. It's like, when they talk about faith is having, believing in the things that you can't see. But synchronicities kind of give us a way of actually seeing it. You know what I'm saying? Like it
Yeah,
makes it kind of tangible. And it just is, it feels very reassuring that it's all under control. There's nothing to fear.
okay,
Yeah.
well, that
Fun.
that's all I had to say about that topic. How about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And
this is a good place to end the podcast. Synchronistically when your
my
phones.
lips are vibrating.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So okay.
uh,
So before we, end the podcast, Lisa, where can people find you?
the best place is sacredexploration.com. And I will mention that I've got a new dream course, it's a 5 session online course that starts in February. And then also posting an 11-day healing retreat at Aya Healing Retreats in Peru for January 7th to 17th. So if anyone's interested that, they can contact me with questions. They can go through my site to register. So it's going to be really great.
Amazing. And we're going to put the links to those services in the description below.
Great.
For myself, you can find the various services, energetic healings that we offer through rishasanctuary.com. And again, we'll put the links in the description below. And you can find us on Facebook at Risha, that's RISHA_sanctuary. That's actually, I don't know if I said Facebook, that you can find us, that's our handle on Instagram, actually. So okay, so that's it. We'll see you guys later.
All right. Have fun with those synchronicities.
Yeah, you guys have fun with those synchronicities.